Hello everybody, welcome back to the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel. I'm your host, Ari Stamatakos, and today we're here with a Group C preview for the FIFA 2022 World Cup in Qatar. Group A and Group B are already up on the YouTube channel, so go back and watch those. But without further ado, let's look at Argentina, Mexico, Poland, and Saudi Arabia. So let's get into it. So let's kick things off with Argentina, and when you look at Argentina's World Cup qualification campaign, it was pretty simple as you'd like to expect. They qualified at Qatar. They finished second from the 10 teams in South America with 11 wins and 6 draws from their 17 games. They finished with a plus 19 goal difference with 27 goals scored and 8 goals conceded. Now, when you look at their most recent continental tournament, it was, of course, their first of course not their first, but Messi's first Copa America win, and this was something which was a heavy burden on this Argentinian team. Now, I think the storyline around Lionel Messi will be the main talking point heading into this World Cup for Argentina. Obviously, he had lacked any sort of proper international trophy for the longest time, and he was finally able to get that with the Copa America. Of course, it was Angel Di Maria who scored the goal in the final to get him that elusive trophy, and we've obviously all seen that clip floating around on social media about his speech pre-game, just how passionate he is for the international team, just how passionate he is for Argentina to succeed. And this will be his last World Cup. It will be his last chance to cement himself as a football immortal, to be arguably the greatest player to ever play the sport if he's able to get his hands on the World Cup trophy. Now, he does need to put some nightmares behind him. Of course, the disappointment in 2018 where they got knocked out in the round of 16 against France, and of course the heartbreak in 2014 against Germany in the final, a game which some dodgy decisions, if you were to call them that, or some decisions go Argentina's way. Messi probably already has one World Cup to his name and can potentially make it a second in Qatar. But the noise around Messi's last World Cup and the noise around him lacking that World Cup trophy will be surrounding Argentina throughout the build-up and throughout the first couple of weeks of the World Cup if they're able to get out of the group stage, which you'd expect them to. Now, their main objective is to just block out all that external noise and really just focus on what they need to do, because they are one of the favourites of the tournament. They do have some unbelievable talents besides Messi, of course. Lautaro Martinez up front, and of course they have a very solid and systematic midfield which has carried them to a pretty good place so far. So they need to block out the external noise of Messi and block out the external noise of what that might bring and really focus on what they need to do. Now, when we look at what they will offer on the pitch, it's a very simple 4-3-3 system. A single pivot sitting deep just behind two advanced number 8s who join the fullbacks and allow the inside forwards to create overloads in the half spaces to suffocate the fullback. The striker remains relatively central. This obviously more likely than not will be Lautaro Martinez. He remains relatively central to get on the end of crosses or balls in behind, as well as with Messi, he's given pretty much freedom to do whatever he wants. He's having an unbelievable season for PSG, and the last thing the Argentinian national team would want is for him to restrict his role and for him not to be able to express himself fully. He's slowly sliding into this kind of number 10 kind of trequartista role just in behind the striker, which just gives him so much more freedom. It's a less physically demanding role, which suits Messi as age starts and injuries starts to creep up on him. But Messi will be the main talking point behind Argentina. They should qualify out of the group, and it would be the perfect footballing story if Argentina were able to win the World Cup and get Messi the one trophy that has avoided him and that has avoided him like the plague, it seems like, for his entire career. If he's able to get the World Cup trophy, and this Argentina side will go down in immortality as one of the best Argentinian sides to ever play, to ever grace their nation, and will be the side that has got Messi that elusive World Cup trophy. Let's move from South America slightly further up to Central America, and let's go to Mexico. Now, when you look at Mexico's World Cup qualification campaign, they finished second in that CONCACAF World Cup qualification draw. From those 14 games, they won 8, drew 4, lost 2. They only finished second behind Canada on goal difference. Now, when we looked at Argentina and the storyline around Lionel Messi, Mexico is the storyline around the 5th game. Now, for those who don't know, Mexico are almost under a little bit of a World Cup curse. That every single time at the World Cup, it seems for the past, I think it's for the past 7 World Cups, I should say, Mexico have not been able to get past the 5th game, the cursed 5th game. It's now been coined. Now, when we go all the way back to 1998, it was a loss on penalties to Bulgaria. 4 years later, a 2-1 loss to Germany after leading until the 74th minute. 4 years after that, it was a 2-0 loss to arch rivals USA in that round of 16 game in 2002. In 2006, it was a 2-1 loss in extra time to Argentina. In 2010, it was a 3-1 loss to Argentina. In 2014, potentially the most heartbreaking of all the losses, it was a 2-1 loss against the Netherlands after conceding in the 88th and 94th minute. I think we can all remember that game pretty well. It was a penalty in the 94th minute, which broke Mexican hearts. And then 4 years after that, in the 2018 in Brazil, it was a 2-0 loss to Brazil in Russia. Another heartbreaking game for all Mexicans out there. And this will be the storyline that Mexico will be looking to kind of dismiss, in a sense. They lost the CONCACAF Gold Cup final against the USA in the 117th minute after pretty much dominating the entire game. They lost in the 117th minute in the final against their arch rivals, the USA. So Mexico will be coming to this tournament with so much emotional baggage and toxic emotional baggage that they need to put in the back of their mind. Because granted, we can all talk about this curse of the fifth game, but they firstly need to get out of the group more than anything. And with the likes of Poland and Saudi Arabia, and as well as Argentina, three sides who will be very tricky to break down, who will be very tough to really get on top of, and will definitely cause some shocks if they are given the opportunity. Mexico need to just focus on every single game as it comes, and they can't let all this negative energy, all this backstory, all this external noise influence the way that they will play. They're a side with a chip on their shoulder. I think that's a good way to put it. Very similar to the Argentines in a sense. A very strong single pivot is key to their 4-3-3 system. With Raul Jimenez being their only true elite striker, they can often deploy very fluid and interchangeable front three, which gives them a layer of unpredictability and versatility, which will be a nightmare for defenders to handle. The very fluent front three is something that Mexico have been able to adopt in games where Jimenez hasn't featured, so it's something that will come natural to them, no doubt. They often have one of their wingers push beyond the front line to create a very good outball, especially on the counter-attack, to get in behind the defense. This is just another way of Mexico, another way that the Mexicans like to play, is very aggressive, very high tempo, and very direct to the likes of having Lozano out wide, who can really get past any one-on-one defender in the world. He's so good at close control. His agility is fantastic, and they do rely a little bit on that individual brilliance to get the job done for them. Like Mexico, like we have said, have always qualified out of the group stage at the World Cup. They are a very, very solid international team that should not be taken lightly. Considering the fact that the Argentinians didn't actually finish first in their World Cup group 4 years ago, finishing first in this group is something that Mexico should be able to achieve. If they can get a result against Argentina, they should be able to get a win against both Poland and Saudi Arabia. Then Mexico could give themselves the best chance at breaking that fifth game curse. Because if it's eight World Cups where the fifth game haunts them once again, I can't imagine the heartache and the pain that they will be going through. But this will be the main thing the Mexicans will be looking to, or the Mexico national team will be looking to overcome, is that fifth game curse. And if it haunts them once again, I can't imagine the pain that they'll be going through. But they are a very good international side. They will be looking to cause a lot of upsets, and they should not be taken lightly under any circumstance. So let's look at the third team in Group C, and that is Poland. Now, Poland are a side that have perennially underperformed at international tournaments throughout the recent times. However, when we look at their World Cup qualification campaign, they were drawn in the same group as England, Albania, Hungary, and Andorra and San Marino, I should say. They finished second in that group behind England, just only 6 points behind them, so they can hold their head pretty high. They weren't blown out of the water by any means. However, that didn't mean they had to go through the playoffs, and their semi-final game against Russia was cancelled due to political reasons. Russia were disqualified from that tournament. They advanced through straight to the next round of that qualification campaign against Sweden, where they did win 2-0. It was Lewandowski and Petar Zielinski with the goals, and that kind of epitomizes what Poland are as a national team. They are, I hesitate to say, a two-man show, but you have Zielinski, who's currently playing a brilliant football at Napoli, and Robert Lewandowski, who has been a fantastic striker, one of the world's best strikers for the past decade, it seems. These are the two players who they will be pinning their hat on, in a sense, to get them some points in Qatar. Now, despite the talent that they've able to produce over the last couple of years, like I said, with Lewandowski and Zielinski, they haven't been able to break through on the World Cup stage. Lewandowski has been one of the world's best strikers, and yet the best they've been able to achieve is a group stage finish in 2018, where they managed to get only 3 points. They're coming off an absolutely dismal European Championship campaign, only getting 1 point from Spain, Sweden, and Slovakia. Lewandowski was, as everyone expected, the main goal scorer in that tournament, scoring 3 of their 4 goals goals that campaign. Peter Zielinski will be the player that will need to be at top form at the World Cup, because in order to get the best out of Lewandowski, you need people to create for him. And Zielinski has been thrown around in multitude of positions, whether that's as a second striker, an attacking midfielder, or even as an advanced number 8. He'll have to be on form in order to get the best out of Lewandowski. Poland do like to play a 5 at the back system. However, it's very uninspiring. It very structured, pretty much game on game. And despite this, they are still relatively easy to get past, as we've seen with Belgium smacking 6 goals past them earlier this year. In the Nations League this season, they've conceded 12 goals, the 6th worst across the whole of Europe, and they've only had an average of 40% possession. Poland traditionally have not been good at international tournaments. We've just covered that, and barring a good performance at the Euros in 2016, reaching the quarterfinals, they've been pretty much everything except inspiring. They've been a very uninspiring team, and despite the talent that they've had, they haven't been able to put it together. They need to pull something out of the fire in order not to finish rock bottom of this group, to be honest, because it's almost as if they're kind of teasing they're teasing everyone in a sense, because of all this talent they've got. They can't seem to put it together, and if it's this tournament where everything clicks for them, then fantastic. I think they'll be welcomed by pretty much everyone in the world, because they need to, with the talent that they've got, we need to see them start performing. However, it wouldn't surprise me if they were able to get upsetted by the likes of Saudi Arabia and Mexico and Argentina, if they were able to not even register a point this tournament. But if Poland are finally going to make a splash on the international stage, it's going to be this tournament. So we'll just have to wait and see whether or not they can finally show just how good they can be. So let's move on to the final team in Group C, and that is Saudi Arabia. Now, when you look at Saudi Arabia's World Cup qualification campaign, it was actually very, very good, despite what a lot of people might have thought prior to the World Cup qualification campaign. They actually finished top of their group, which consisted of Japan, Australia, Oman, China, and Vietnam. Across the 10 games they won 7 of them, they drew 2, and they lost 1, having a +6 goal difference because they scored 12 goals and conceded 6. That's how goal difference works. Saudi Arabia coming off a pretty good / underwhelming, it's depending on how you look at it, 2019 Asian Cup campaign. They won their first 2 group games against Lebanon and North Korea pretty comfortably. However, they lost their final group game against Qatar before losing to Japan in the round of 16 1-0. Now, their past World Cups have been okay, reaching the round of 16 in 1994 before getting into the group stage in 98, 02 and 2006. So they constantly qualified for 4 years in a row back then, and they're coming into a little bit of a golden generation this time around. Of course, they qualified 4 years ago in 2018, where they only managed to reach the group stage. However, like I said, they're coming into a little bit of a golden generation after years in the wilderness. Now, when you look at Saudi Arabia, they're a team that does rely on individual brilliance, and they do rely on Salim Al Dossori very, 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 very highly, and very, very much in a sense. He will be the main talisman this tournament. He's the player that we covered in the one key player for every single World Cup nation every single World Cup nation video on the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel, which you can go back and watch. However, he'll be Saudi Arabia's main man. He was their main man at the Asian Cup. He was their main man in the World Cup qualification campaign, scoring 7 goals from 9 games. And he will play on the left-hand side of like an attacking 3 behind a central striker. And he will be a nightmare for defenses to face, just because of the agility that he offers and the close ball control that he possesses. He can cut in on the inside. He can go on the outside. He's very good in front of goal. So he'll be Saudi Arabia's main man. And like I said, that he'll play on the left wing in a 4-2-3-1 system that relies heavily on transition-based football. They look to hit the channels early with balls over the top and balls in between the lines. Direct ball movement to their attacking and more flair-driven players is what they will be looking to achieve. They need to ensure that they are defensively very solid, meaning that on the counter-attack, they won't be as good, because when you go to the World Cup, you need to be defensively is something. Being defensively solid is something that a lot of teams need to ensure that they are. So they might not be as proficient on the counter attack as what we've seen in previous tournaments or in the World Cup qualification campaign. However, that's where they're looking to score most of their goals. And if they can sort out their little bit of defensive worries, which has been somewhat present over the previous couple of years, they should be able to be a pretty good team and should be able to be a very underrated team heading into the World Cup. Of course, Argentina and Mexico are your 2 favourites to go through this group. However, Saudi Arabia, because they are able, like we saw, they finished on top of Japan in that group, they can take it to some of the better teams in Asia, so they should be able to translate on the world stage. And Saudi Arabia, despite their slight underperformance at the Asian Cup and their slight underperformance 4 years ago, they are definitely capable of making a shock in Qatar. So yes, thank you all very much for watching the preview for the 2022 FIFA World Cup of Group C. Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Make sure you leave your predictions from who will finish first, second, third, and fourth in this group. Make sure you subscribe to the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel, like the video. See you guys next time, and goodbye.